All right, we're going live for a new episode of the Electrek Podcast. I am Fred Lambert, your host, and as usual, I'm with Seth Wintraub. How are you doing today, Seth?
I'm good.
All right, let me shut down my notification for a second so we can focus on this episode of the Electrek Podcast because we have plenty to talk about this week. And unsurprisingly, we're going to talk a little bit about the big story of the week that dominated Tesla news. I know not everyone wants to talk about that. I understand. I'm tired of talking about it. I've been following me on Twitter this week. I've been commenting a lot on it. But it is a big story when it comes to Tesla because it doesn't just affect Elon. It affects the whole company. It affects all the shareholders. And it is a complicated story um, at many levels. And if you want to you can listen to just the Elon haters that just say take his money away, he's a rich man anyway, or you can listen to the Tesla fan that says give Elon his money, he's due. That's going a little too simple. I think it's a little bit more about this story, and we're gonna try to get into it a little bit. So if you haven't been following this week, it's been long in the making. That's the thing too that as people confuse, like people are saying like, why is it happening now? Why is it not happening in 2018 or whenever, anytime between 2018 and now? I don't have the exact answer on that, just other than the court system is extremely slow. I'm myself cut into a lawsuit now that's been going on for 2 years, and I don't see any hand in sight. So, like, I know that the court system can be extremely slow. So, I think that's the real answer. But we're talking about a judge in Delaware voiding, rescinding the Tesla CEO compensation package, performance-based compensation package from 2018, which ran from 2018 to 2022, 2021, when all the trenches of that, all the milestone of that package were completed. And package is worth roughly 55, $56 billion if completed, and it was completed by Elon. And it was voted, approved by shareholders. So why can it be rescinded? That's the big question. So as soon as it was put in place, voted by shareholders in 2018, that's when the lawsuit was started by a shareholder. For context, it's a shareholder that owns only 9 shares. It's a shareholder that most likely doesn't care about the situation at all. Most likely, a shareholder just put in place by a law firm that saw Tesla board and Elon circumventing the laws and the rules of regulation of a public company and decided to take advantage of that. That I will not dispute. So we can argue all day whether is good and bad, but that's not really the point. The point is um, the judge heard both sides of that situation, and then we are 6 years later, on more like 5 6 years later now. That's when the decision came out this week. But actually, this went to trial in 2022, so over a year ago at this point. And again, for context, during that trial, the judge heard from virtually everyone involved in making that compensation package happen. So Tesla board members, the compensation committee, especially Elon's lawyer, who happened to be also Tesla's general counsel at the time, Todd Maron, and everyone involved in this basically got all the information. That was all on their oath too, which has consequences if you end up lying. And the judge took all that information in and decided that indeed the compensation package should be voided. Why? Now, of course, Elon, as soon as the news came out, went on a full propaganda effort to control the narrative and say that this is pure madness because the judge is taking away the rights of the shareholders to decide for themselves. The problem with that narrative, I can sympathize with that narrative. I actually voted for him to get that compensation package back in 2018 because it made sense to me. Like, oh, okay, yes, Elon gets 6% more of the company, but if for him to get that, the company has to increase its value by $600 billion, which is going to make shareholders very rich. So it makes sense. But the problem with that is not really what's at stake in this case. What's at stake in this case is the fundamental um, foundation really of public companies, which is that the company, the board, the CEO cannot mislead, cannot lie to the shareholders. And the shareholders have voted on the package, but if they have voted without having the right information about the package, then the vote doesn't make sense. For those that don't remember, the vote on this was 80% of the share that were voted on. Of course, Elon didn't vote his shares, obviously, but 80% of the shares that were voted for the package, and 20% voted against. So still 20% of the Tesla shareholder didn't want that package to go through in the first place. So I think that's worth noting. But 80% did it, which is a strong majority. But maybe, and I know, like this is the thing that I want the Elon's fans like I see Brett let Elon get paid there, and that's a valid argument. Maybe you still want Elon to get paid after getting all the information, but that's a thing. You need all the information before making that decision, and maybe other people getting the old information, maybe they would think differently because. And here's the thing: everyone commenting on this should probably read the entire decision. And I know it's a long one. It's like a 200-page decision that was released by the judge here. But it is a fascinating one because it does give you like an in-depth look at how the biggest compensation package of all time for a CEO came to be. It goes into details on how what Elon did to make it happen, and what the board did to make it happen, and all that. And that is at the core of this litigation here: is that the board misrepresented the package at being put together by independent board member, and in fact, the board member were far from independent from Elon, and also Elon himself was basically the one crafting the entire package. Then his friends on the board approved it, and not only that, you had his personal lawyer was the go-between Elon and the um, the board, but Todd Marin was Elon's personal lawyer, his personal divorce lawyer, representing him, and he was also representing the company, the board, at the same time as general counsel. So that right there is already like a big red flag. And then, of course, we don't need to go into all the details here of the relationship between. And I know that a lot of people focus on. Yeah, we all knew that it was not the board's members were not independent. They were friends on Elon, but you can put friends on the board and everything like that. That's completely true. You're allowed to put your friends on the board. It goes beyond that in the case of Tesla. Unfortunately, it's not just his friend, and obviously his brother is on the board, but his brother recused himself from the compensation meetings. But people like Ira, I can never pronounce his name, Ira Efrenstein, I think. Um, I don't know if I have him in here. He's one of the only one that's still on the Tesla board. I don't know if he's on the compensation committee, but Ira is his first name. Then you have Antonio Gracias, who's not on the board anymore. He's probably the biggest problem in this case here because he was an extremely close friend of Elon, and he had personal financial dealings. So it's not just friend things. Ira, Antonio all have personal financial dealings with Elon outside of Tesla. So that makes them non-independent anymore. And the only one that can really be claimed to be independent in this whole thing was Robin Denholm, who is now chairman of the board. And this all happened during that time too. And this is all detailed in the lawsuit. It's very interesting where you see basically Elon chose Robin to be the chairwoman. So, and we all know how that came to be. Elon was kicked out of the chair by the SEC for misrepresenting having secured enough funding to take Tesla private, which was false, obviously. But so right after that happened, it's like, okay, I'm not chair anymore. Who's going to be chair? And and Kimball suggested Robin, and Elon was like, yeah, sure. And then Robin said no. And then Elon convinced Robin to say yes. And obviously, Robin was the independent member on the uh, compensation committee. So she was the one that could have probably like made this thing. If she was like the only one, she could have made this thing work. Like there would be no litigation here. But she sided obviously with everyone on the board, all the Elon's friends. And that makes sense because she was also getting a fat compensation package during that time that made her extremely rich, a little bit too rich because she ended up settling with the other bonds member to return $735 million worth of
Which is
Tesla stock
crazy.
in cash. And now she happens to be selling $50 million worth now, like now and until the end of this summer. She's allowed to sell $50 million worth of Tesla share, which I think is pretty much like what she has left. So I think
She's
Seth,
out.
you have a little theory on that.
She's out. As soon as the
Yeah.
check clears, she's gone.
Yeah. I mean, I think she might not be the only one on the board with this. Like, so basically, between all that, between Elon being behind the one crafting his own compensation plan, and everything, this is just not how a compensation plan is supposed to come together in a public company. So that's what the judge ruled on. Okay. So it's not about taking away the right for the shareholders to decide. In fact, all this situation is doing really is going to force another vote on an updated compensation package. And you know what? It can be like the exact same package in terms of compensation for Elon, like in terms of actual value, and then the shareholders just need to be presented by it in an honest way. Like, yeah, Elon basically crafted this whole thing with his lawyers, and there was a little bit of negotiation. And again, you can read the whole decision; it goes into details, and that's not like the judge saying that. That's not Electrek saying that. That's Elon and his friends saying that. Like it's all taken from the actual testimonies of those people on their oath. And yeah, so shareholders going to be able to vote on it again. So if you want to pass it again with those information, you're going to be able to. And you know what? I still have Tesla shares. I might vote for it because I think he might deserve that. Like he actually delivered on the performance during that time. During that time at Tesla, Tesla went from a $50 billion company to a $600 billion companies. They delivered they ramped up the Model 3 to be a best-selling vehicles. They delivered the Model Y, ramped up the Model Ys to be the best-selling car in the world. They vastly expanded the supercharger network. Tesla became highly profitable, the first all-electric automakers to do so. Great things was achieved under Elon leadership right now. Of course, this is like a retroactive thing. Obviously, this is like for that period. Now, if you tell me like now he needs a new compensation plan because that plan ended last year or the year before that, actually, um, now would be a different case because like I know we talked about this plenty of time on the podcast, but I think Elon is like very much a part-time CEO now. He's heading five others companies, so six companies in total. He's also a full-time political influencer at this point. Like I think Tesla deserve a full-time CEO really. So um
I agree. I think we should game plan or game this out a little bit because there it it kind of seems to me that Elon will not be the head of Tesla in a year. Like it seems like it's impossible for his demands to be met.
he's
And
not
I
a
don't even
quitter though.
no, he's not a quitter. But I mean, let's game it out. So in a certain amount of time, Tesla's board is probably going to put forth a similar package that he has. Now, will they include that his new package in that package? So like
That's the big
retroactive.
question. That's the big question. They might. They
But
might.
do you think the same pay package would pass now? I mean, keep in mind, yes, like Elon did all those things, but he also, kind of made FSD a joke. He, went really hard right wing. He did all these things that, maybe investors aren't too happy about. Also, Tesla over the last 2 years, 3 years is, basically flat. So, um, current investors who are going to be voting on this, it's not going to be past investors. Current investors are going to say to themselves, do I want to dilute uh, my shares, my newly, undiluted shares? Um, do I want to do that or not? And so it was 80% before. It might be, less than that this time. That's going to be a big vote. Like that's going to be, a $60 billion vote. Are we going to take $60 billion worth of Tesla out of Tesla and give it to Elon? Or are we just going to keep that as shareholders? And I'm pretty much out of the,
Yeah.
the Tesla game. So, I really don't have skin in it. But for me, it's like, I don't know that that's going to pass. Like I don't think it's going to pass the same. It's definitely not going to get 80%. It's definitely going to go south of 80. I don't know if it goes south of 50 though.
Yeah, it's just it's hard to guess really because it might kind of cancel each other out. Like the fact that he actually delivered on it, and a lot of people weren't sure at all. It gave Elon a ton of credibility and everything at that time. So they're like, all right, maybe we can do it again and all that. And so that helps. And then of course you're right. There's a lot of people that are like screw that and everything. But also there's a lot of people that said screw that and everything are out of Tesla too, just like you.
Right.
So you have to take that into account. There's a lot of people that are still in Tesla or are big Elon fan. I know
Right.
there's still like people like me though that are still like shareholders and like because they just believe in Tesla's mission and everything, and they believe that the Elon Musk situation will work itself out
What's
eventually.
like the breakdown retail versus institutional investors?
Yeah, institutional I think is over 30%. Um,
Yeah, I mean it's hard to
and you
see
have
them that wanting to hand over
insiders, obviously a
50
lot.
billion.
Yeah, you have a lot of insiders. Then you have the retail. Retail is not majority. I think it's a little bit short of a majority.
Right. I mean, I don't know. Like I know it's not going to be 80%. I think it's going to be less than 80%, but I don't know if it's going to be under 50%. So that's the previous plan. Then the new
Hmm.
plan where Elon's saying, "Hey, I'm starting all these, AI companies and I might take the stuff with me and I might not and you guys better give me more and more and more." That to me seems like a hard sell.
Yeah,
Um
yeah,
so
that I agree. Unless it comes with a clear like because by the way, that's another thing that was highlighted in the decision, which everyone that's commenting on this should read, is is that when they did that historic plan of worth $55 billion, there was nothing in there that said Elon would stay at Tesla for a certain period of time and work at Tesla a certain amount of time. Even though I know that back then Elon had less other ventures and everything like that, but he still had SpaceX. He still had the Boring Company. Uh, I don't exactly remember in 2018 if he had Neuralink but he had a lot of other things going on at that time already. He just had started OpenAI and all that, so there were a lot of other things going on, and there was no mention whatsoever. You need to spend like a certain amount of time at Tesla and all that. To be fair, like he did spend a lot of time during those 2018, 2019, 2020, like slept at the factory and all that.
yep.
Uh, I give him all the credit for that. But there was none of that in writing on it like that. So maybe if there is that in the new one that like, hey, you have to be that. Maybe there was nothing about the sell of those exercise option. Like when Elon has sold like $39 billion worth of Tesla stock, he did it on the open market, which is completely unprecedented. I know like people are like, hey, no one is like saying anything when Jeff Bezos sells billions of Amazon stock. Well, Jeff Bezos is a lot smarter the way that he sells his Amazon stock, and he's not like crashing it every time that he does. Um, so doesn't help either, obviously, but still, he signs a plan with the company normally to do it and everything. And it's a lot cleaner than giant open market sell that Elon did. So yeah, if there is some of that included, I think Elon can do it and like do like he's great at propaganda too and everything, so he can make like a campaign to convince people to do it. I think that's possible. Now, however, there's other aspects to this. So Elon went more than a little propaganda campaign. He blamed it on Delaware, which a lot of people ask me like, why was this in Delaware in the first place? Because Tesla is incorporated in Delaware. Why was Tesla incorporated in Delaware then? Tesla wasn't founded in Delaware. It was founded in California. Now it's based in Texas. So what is it about? A lot of companies are being incorporated in Delaware for tax reasons and probably beyond tax reason, because there's a plenty of other states that are favorable to tax reason. It's the court system there. Um, the court system is extremely pro corporate there, and Tesla had similar lawsuits in the past too that didn't go through. Like this one is specifically managed to apart from that. So like people now are blaming the judge in particular. They are Tesla fans are accusing her of being in Biden's pockets and all that, even though I've never seen any strong evidence of the case. The only thing I've seen people use right now to claim that, and then it gets repeated. Well, the actual evidence is that before being a judge, she worked at a law firm, and that law firm gave money to the Biden campaign. That's the stretch there. That's why she's in Biden's pocket, which is a big stretch, especially in the U.S. where money in politics is just
Y-
day-to-day
Yeah, that's
standard.
that's tenuous. I mean, that's almost like that's that's conspiracy theory. Like you got to have like the pictures and the lines drawing and
Yeah, but that's exactly what they did. So they did that. They did that, and then Elon like responded to that comment, and then everyone is just repeating, "Oh, she's just in Biden's pocket," based on that, which is not great, not a great
nope,
look.
nope.
So yeah, so now Elon instead blamed the court system in Delaware, and his strategy now is to move Tesla's incorporation, and that's the next story we're gonna get to move Tesla's incorporation state from Delaware to Texas, which is very pro shareholders, according to Elon. Even though, like,
I'm sure he's done
Delaware
the
is,
research.
yeah, I mean, Delaware is like this specific Delaware is very pro shareholder, obviously, and this specific lawsuit, the result, the decision was technically pro shareholders. They
Exactly.
decided that it's against the executive, against the CEO of the company. That's what it's against. It's sided against. It's it's anti-misleading shareholders. So that's very pro shareholders, obviously. I know that a lot of people feel that they were not misled, and I'm kind of one of them, to be honest, because I was when I voted for it, I was very aware of the board members not being independent. I was not as aware of how much Elon and his lawyer were involved in crafting the compensation, so that I can probably say that I was misled too to that degree, but still, um, the point is like if you are one of those shareholders that are like I don't feel misled, that's not the point. Maybe another shareholder was not as aware to you. Like you say, he should have done his due diligence. Yes, but there's a degree to it. Like you can do your due diligence up until the company is lying to you. The company is calling someone that's lending millions of dollars to Elon personally, an independent board member. Like you anyone can understand that if you're lending millions of dollars to someone and then you approve you're on the board of their company and you approve them to get paid billions of dollars, there's a little conflict of interest going
A
on here.
lot.
Like
It's problematic for sure.
very problematic. So just give McCormick, the judge, a break. Like the Tesla fans are going crazy on her. Like she's a judge, she has to follow the rules of the law, and then she's presented with that information. Of course, she's gonna rule against it. Like it makes no sense. So yeah. So Elon, instead of so, oh yeah, I should go back to my main point in all this before moving to the Texas thing. If anything, what the decision showed, it showed that Tesla has a governance issue. And I know like governance is a weird word now, especially for Elon fans, because Elon is a super anti ESG. What is it?
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's ESG or something.
and what does it stand for?
Environment, sustainability, and
And
governance, maybe.
governance. Yeah, and governance. Now, governance is definitely one of them. But like people are saying, oh, it is this DIE crowd and ESG crowd that are pushing governance. Governance has been way before, has been around way before ESG. It's the basis of a public company. Is like how it's been governed. Public companies, especially at the scale of Tesla, are like mini government at this point. Like they have branches and they have executive power and they have the board, which is like the Congress, basically. Like you have all these things going on, and that's what it's based on. And you have the voters, where are the shareholders, the stakeholders in this. So the relationship, the governance is the relationship between all of that, and all it needs to be according to the rules of a public company. And Tesla is just not is playing fast and loose with it, basically. So there needs to be and again, the point is not just about this lawsuit, not just about this Elon's compensation package, is that in the decision, it highlights the governance issues that led to this problem in the compensation package, but it is the same sources of the problems we're seeing now. Other problems like Elon admitting of a conflict of interest in AI related to his AI startup and Tesla, possible even breach of fiduciary duty, and the board just sitting on their hands doing nothing. That is part of the governance issue.
Yep.
So it's just highlighting it in the compensation package aspect, but we're seeing other impact of that same issue. And now Elon, instead of being a reasonable person looking at both side of things, and saying, okay, maybe we should fix that at Tesla, which is completely fixable. Honestly, it's not that hard to fix if you're willing to do it. Instead, he's saying this is a politically motivated attack, and and then what we're going to do instead is we're going to move the corporation to Texas. And Texas, all the judges are for me and everything. So we're going to be fine, and we're going to just pass the package again. And then if they bring it back to court again, it's going to go to Texas, and then it's going to be shut down. Boom. That's the solution. So no, I had a little bit of hope that maybe this could lead to a good thing and we could get a better governance at Tesla. But no, instead it's just going to be that. And of course that was beautifully played by Elon in terms of marketing. When he did a Twitter poll. In his Twitter poll, he said, "Should Tesla change its state of incorporation to Texas, home of its physical headquarters?" So that's it. That's the only thing. So a lot of people have no context whatsoever about this. They don't know what's going on. And of course, yeah, of course, it should be incorporated in the physical headquarters. Also, only two possible answers: yes or no. So no, I don't have a strong opinion on this, and I just want to see the results. None of that. So the poll is completely useless, and obviously unsurprisingly, it was voted 87% yes, 13% no. So now Elon is going to move to this vote to the shareholders, which is obviously the only thing that matter. Now it needs to be presented correctly to the shareholders. So hopefully the board had its lesson and is going to do that this time. But this is one that's a lot easier to pass, obviously, because again, it makes sense to be incorporated where your headquarters are. And so Elon is going to build the supports, and I'm pretty sure that Elon is also going to be able to vote his shares on that. I don't see why he couldn't. He probably shouldn't,
But you,
obviously.
but the point, I mean, it doesn't matter where they're incorporated. This has already happened. Tesla's in Delaware currently, so this is not going to reverse the decision, though.
No, but if they do it, and then whenever they do, so I assume that they're going to do that, and if it passes, which probably will, they will not even appeal the decision. They will just recraft the package, get it to a vote again, pass it if they can, and then move on from this.
Right.
Because then,
Here's an
if
idea.
yeah,
What if they said, all right, one package from 2018 to whenever, and it's basically you have to keep growing the stock and you get more money, but if the stock drops to 100 or 150, you lose all the stuff that you gained.
yeah,
Gained. I feel like that would be fair.
it would certainly be more fair. It makes sense. I don't know how. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Especially people should keep in mind, Elon hasn't exercised his shares from his stock option from that package. Um,
Well, he
so
had gotten that package and then he sold all of his old stuff to pay the taxes on getting that package and also buying Twitter. So,
well, yes and no. I mean, I think he wouldn't have bought Twitter if is that me that's pinging like that? I don't know why I'm that's weird.
I don't know.
Uh, I don't think he would have bought Twitter if he hadn't completed all the milestone for that package, knowing that he would get that 6% more stake in Tesla worth $55 billion. That's for sure. But he actually never. There's a 5-year waiting period to exercise those shares, so he hasn't exercised them yet. He paid. He bought Twitter after exercising the shares from his previous plans. So he had two previous plans in 2008 or 9, and then one in 2012, if I remember correctly. And those each give him 4% more of the company. So that's part of also too. Like the board asked, like, why was it 6% this time? Like why? Like how did that happen? It was 4% the first time, which was extremely generous. 4% of the second time was extremely generous, and now why 6%? Like that make no sense. And then so was it negotiated and everything? Nope. No, not negotiated at all. The only thing that was negotiated is like one of the trenches was like bumped up by $100 million. Um, Also, there was issues with how there was negotiation in terms of how actually ambitious the plan was. The plan was ambitious for sure, But actually, from the Tesla's perspective, internally, their own projection was for the most part matching this plan. So it was like it was not like um, they were it was a new super high target. It was just we already had very uh, incredible growth in our projection, and now we need to execute on them just to make the difference. Obviously, I'm not saying that it was easy to execute on that. It was not. Like I'm not saying that.
All
But
right,
still,
we're a half hour in.
yeah,
Let's talk about Tesla Cybertruck powering.
yeah, good
Uh,
idea, good idea.
yeah.
So yeah, we are starting to have a little bit more info about the PowerShare. So the PowerShare is the home bidirectional charging feature of the Cybertruck. So the Cybertruck obviously came with the first bidirectional charging power capability in Tesla vehicles, where you can charge basically anything out of the outlet that you have in the bed of the truck, or you can even charge another vehicle, another EV if you want. But in terms of charging your home with it, powering your home, that's the new PowerShare feature. And we haven't had the details on it other than it's gonna it needs the hardware of the gateway, which is also used for the Powerwall. It needs the new uh, PowerShare connector or the universal connector, one or the other, which is a $600 product. The gateway is an $1,800 product. So you need these hardware. If you already have the Powerwall, you should be having those, but I'm going to get to that a little bit later because apparently that's not as simple as that. And then you need all of that installed. And then if you have an outage at your home, you could just plug it in. And instead of charging your truck, it's your truck that's going to charge your home, that's going to power your home. So it replaces a power wall, or it replaces a gas generator or something like that. Um, so the feature, even though Tesla's been delivering trucks since last year, we haven't heard about anyone getting an installation on this. A few weeks ago, Tesla started sending out surveys to owners or buyers, even if you didn't already have the truck, just to get an idea of when if you're eligible for it. So it's not clear what the criteria are to be eligible. It probably has to do with where your home is, because I assume that Tesla doesn't have installers everywhere for this just yet, and also probably the electrical situation at your home. This is going to probably start with the, I mean, everything, you can do everything basically, like eventually, but just how hard it is to get there. So probably some Tesla wants to start with the easier ones. But now we're starting to hear from Cybertruck owners who are getting installation schedules. So they have actual deals to make this happen now. First off, on the hardware side, the what Tesla is doing, because of the Foundation Series package, so Tesla is only right now delivering Foundation Series Cybertrucks, and you have the all-wheel drive version, and you have the Cyber Beast version. So Tesla is including the hardware for PowerShare for both. So it's part of the deal with the Foundation Series, but the installation is not included for the all-wheel drive. It is included for the Cyber Beast, but it is now we learned that it's included with a $4,000 installation credit or rebate, whatever you want. So it's if it goes over $4,000, you're gonna pay for it. If it's under, you're fine. So I assume that means that Tesla estimate that the installation cost is gonna average around $4,000 for an installations, which is not cheap, but still a lot cheaper than a power wall, obviously, or even like a good gas generator, and especially if you account for the gas. So now people are starting to schedule those installation, but apparently a lot of people are, even if you have Powerwall, you do need some additional hardware apparently. So that's something to keep in mind. And oh yeah, and then we also learned that the off-grid feature is the only one that's active. So the only way to use PowerShare right now is for backup power when you are off-grid. So there's no peak shaving capability with the Cybertruck's PowerShare feature right now. So you can forget about that. It's not clear if Tesla is going to do it, and if when is they going to do it, because we know that Elon was always a little bit reticent in deploying that feature. He's always like bad modding, like throwing cold water on bidirectional charging. It doesn't really want the vehicles to have that capacity, but Tesla is actually like doing it anyway. And we assume that peak shaving was part of it, because that would charge and discharge the Cybertruck's battery a little bit more, a lot more, obviously, and that would affect the battery pack, and that would might look bad for Tesla in terms of battery degradation and all that. So they want to focus just on power outages off grid, which I think makes sense for that product, honestly. But it's going to be interesting now to see the actual installations happening. And we already have a few. I talked to two different Cybertruck owners, and one of them, both of them actually were not Cyberbeast buyers. They were all drive buyers, and both of them at the installation cost was over $4,000. So something to keep in mind. So all in, like even like let's say it's $5,000 installation, and you're not a foundation series owner, and you need to buy the hardware. You need to expect something probably in the range of the $6,000 $7,000 all in to get access to that feature.
Now, do you think they'll let just regular old electricians do the installation, or do you have to have like Tesla come out and do it?
That's a good point. I should add that people that are being quoted right now, it's like Tesla is not sending you like the package. It is sending it to a certified Tesla installer, and doesn't seem to have any option every time. That's so it doesn't look like you can like negotiate pricing or anything. So Tesla is like, this is the guy that's going to do the installation for you because he's certified with us. He's going to give you a price, and you take it or leave it. So
Hmm.
I'm sure the take rate is going to be very good for the Foundation series, even with the installation having to be paid, because people who's going to feel like they're going to leave the hardware on the table if they don't do it. So they're probably going to pay for the installation.
And it's pretty
Um,
compelling. I mean, you've got
yeah,
basically like 10 power walls in that truck worth of
yeah,
electricity. For $4,000, that doesn't seem like a bad deal.
yeah. No, it's not. Like you could, with some power consumption management, you could easily power your house for a few days. Like it's not
Yeah, a
bad.
week even.
Yeah. All right, next one is the wheel covers. So we talked about before the wheels covers that are a little bit problematic for the Cybertruck. We've seen them like fly off of of the truck before, and it seems like it's not just a one time issue, an external issue. It seemed like a bunch of people took pictures of Cybertrucks as superchargers, and often you can see like one wheel cover missing. So Jamie posted an article here. We learned from a few owners that Tesla is not delivering Cybertrucks with the covers on anymore. They are they were wearing out too quickly, and they are pushing on the tire basically, and they are falling off. So they are redesigning them to fix that issue. So if you're taking delivery of Cybertruck in the next few weeks, don't expect to have the wheel covers, which are very good for efficiency, obviously. Talking about probably a 10% gain in aerodynamic performance. So for
They
now,
they
you're
don't look
off.
terribly aerodynamic. I mean, obviously better than, but they have those
Yeah.
like fan things. So what happens is the tire smushes down and it like hits that side of the.
Yeah, it sounds like, and then it erodes pretty quickly, and then it just falls off if you get some air in there.
It's funny. I'm surprised it wasn't spun as like, hey, the the wheel covers come off as a weapon. If somebody's rolling coal on you, you can get them back. No, okay,
It's like the James Bond thing where like
yeah,
you activate something and it like the nails comes out of the truck.
exactly.
Um, all right, we had an interesting report here coming from Bloomberg this week about a new LFP, a small LFP battery cell factory coming to Nevada by Tesla. Um, Taking a little bit grain of salt on the report because there's not many details, and it's not clear. They said it's coming to Sparks, and so Sparks is like the city like east of Reno. Sometimes people say that Gigafactory Nevada is in Sparks, so I don't know if like they're saying it's going to be, because they don't say that the factory is going to be like on Gigafactory Nevada, which is getting a new battery factory for 4680 cells. But so it might be in actual the Sparks and not Gifhard, Nevada. So it's not clear on that. But they say that Tesla is building a new small facility to build LFP cells using machinery from CATL. So CATL is apparently not involved other than selling them the machinery to build them. And that's important for context because some automakers are under fire by the government here right now, especially the Republicans, regarding um, involvement of Chinese battery manufacturers like Ford, for example, partnering with CATL for their LFP factory in the US. That's I've raised some red flags because I guess some people are seeing it as CATL getting around the protectionist approach that the government is taking to encourage battery manufacturing in the US. I guess that's the argument, even though at the end of the day it's going to be US jobs. So I'm not sure I get the point. Anyway, they just don't want it to be owned by Chinese. Um, though in this
It
case,
seems like CATL is pretty far ahead in the LFP world. Like
so far ahead. But
anybody,
BYD is also doing good, but that's also Chinese.
right? But it's weird because I think LFP was invented in the U.S. and I think we kind of just sat on our hands there, and China was like, "Oh, this seems like a good technology. Let's develop it. Let's spend 10, 20 years working on this, and here we are."
Yeah, I think CATL produced like most of them, so that makes sense that they have developed the best machinery for it. So Tesla's going to take that machinery and then operate its own small. They call it a small facility. They're not talking about any output, and they specifically said too that it sells for the mega pack. So interesting too. All right, we have a few more news items to discuss, and then we're gonna jump into the comment section. So if you guys have any question for us, put them in the comment section right now. When I get to them in a few minutes, it can be about any subject that we discussed today, or any other subject in the EV space or clean energy space that you want us to comment on. All right, big news. So this is for a Canadian. So we have a lot of Canadian listeners on the show. So this is a big news for you. Tesla last night dropped the price of the Model Y in Canada on the two base version of the vehicle. So the rear-wheel drive, $4,000 cheaper at $54,000 Canadian, and maybe more importantly, the dual motor all-wheel drive long range is also down $4,000. It's now $64,000, and the fact that it's $64,000 is very important, not just for Canada itself, but specifically for people in Quebec, because that brings the price down on below the $65,000 threshold to be eligible for the $7,000 rebate for electric vehicles. So now, finally, the dual motor version is going to have access to both. So now the rear wheel drive version already had access to both, and now it's $4,000 cheaper. So it's going to be popular across Canada, which has the $5,000 federal rebate. And so now basically the Model Y is $49,000 car Canadian. Well, Canadian pesos for our American friends, I think it's like 70 cents a dollar, something like
Really?
that.
I thought it was
Yeah.
closer.
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit closer now, maybe like 75. I'm not so sure. I should know because I get paid in US.
Yeah,
But
true.
uh, the uh, the I would have to assume, and I don't have the figures in front of me, that the rear-wheel drive is more popular in Canada because it's obviously cheaper. But the all-wheel drive long range is also extremely popular in Canada for a few reasons. Just because of the climate here being a lot rougher. So in the winter, the longer range is a lot useful because you lose more range. But the all-wheel drive is also very light to people because driving in the snow it can be very useful. So I know personally some people. I think my parents are in that market too. Who were interested to get the Model Y, but they wanted a dual motor one, and they felt like they were just short of getting that $7,000 for the government. So they felt like they were just leaving money to the table if they went with the Model Y instead of going with a competitor that has dual motor, all-wheel drive, but get access to the rebate in Quebec. So now the Model Y, well, it's not on the eligible list just yet, or at least not this morning when I check. But it should be like any time now be added because I don't see why it wouldn't. So now it brings the price down $12,000 on this thing. So it's basically a $52,000 car that you get for all-wheel drive and long range. So probably going to be a big boost for sales for Tesla in Quebec in the coming weeks.
Are you getting one?
I'm tempted, but I'm gonna wait at the end of the quarter see if they they have another like incentive like FSD transfer or or like
Yeah, good
unlimited
call.
supercharging transfer, something like that. Because otherwise, it's not worth it because they're not giving me enough money for my Model 3, basically.
Yeah, and I saw MKBHD review the Model 3 quite nicely. Like I feel like he's usually a little bit more even, and he was like all he was very pro Model 3.
Yeah, yeah, you liked it a lot. All right, this is an interesting one. We have this. so the Norwegian Automobile Federation always post a very interesting yearly range test in the winter for electric vehicles, and it's always a very interesting process because it's like a convoy of vehicle basically, and they all perform in the exact same conditions. So you get a very good idea, and then they compare the range in the winter to the WLTP, which is obviously expected to be lower than WLTP because it's real world and it is winter. But it's a good way to get an idea of how well vehicles perform in the cold and how close they are to the advertised range. And very interesting performance here this year. I think out of the so this is not is this is not in order though. Is there the link to the test itself? Because the test itself has a very interesting chart where you see the, the performance compared to the WLTP. No, it's no. All right. Anyway, I remember it by heart basically, but out of the top five, I think four of them are Chinese automakers. That's
Yep, that's a little.
that should tell you something. And by that I mean the longest range and the closest to their WLTP announced range. So more realistic range and longer performance in winter driving. And the top one was one that I mean we saw it. You remember last year we saw it in where was it in Germany?
Yeah,
Uh,
IFA.
is that how you pronounce that?
Wait, no,
IFA?
sorry. That's a different show in Germany. Um,
Hi-fi? I don't know. I was gonna
FI.
say hi-fi personally, but
Wow, my brain is fried. Why can't I remember?
you heard it. You heard someone say. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it out loud.
No, I
But
don't
it's
know.
HIPHI for people. Figure it out yourself. Basically, it's the first one that you see here. Okay, it's a very like aggressive looking vehicle, like kind of a sedan crossover on the
Reminds me of
back.
the BMW i8 a little bit.
Yeah. A little bit of that. It's very aggressive looking, and it had the best performance. So the advertised right, and let's stick to kilometers here because they do kilometers there. 555 kilometers actually did 520. So 555, that's the WLTP. It did 522, so only lost 6% range over the advertised range. So that's truly beautiful. BYD did the minus 20%. Let me see what were uh, the Lotus did very good at minus. So I counted the Lotus as a Chinese automaker because they're Chinese owned, right? And I think they're built in China too. Are they?
Yep. Yes.
Yep. Okay, so that makes sense. Neo did very well at the EL6 did the minus 14. ET5 also. Who else did great? Xpeng did 30 minus 13 to 520 WLTP 452 basically actual range. So one that was very disappointing. So Tesla always did very well in that range test. However, the big difference this year, and it might have been a difference. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. So they only did the Model 3 and they only did the new Model 3. Now the new Model 3 is actually supposed to be more efficient, but maybe it's the winter thing what happened. But it did it didn't be awful because there's some of them that did worse, but it didn't score very high. Minus 30%, so it lost 30%. 621 kilometers advertised range and 441 kilometers. But the big difference here is like it's probably again Tesla being a little bit more optimistic and pushing the advertised range, WLTP range, APA in the US a little bit too much because you can see it like for example like the Polestar also got minus 30, but the advertising 614 got 430. Even the hi-fi or whatever you want to call it was coming in at 555. So the hi-fi had a lower advertised range than the Model 3, but a higher actual range when tested.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's almost more impressive to have a lower, kilowatt hours per 1,000 kilometers rating than being close to um, your stated out, your not
Yeah.
EPA but WLTP. I think that's where the real like impressive work is getting
Yeah.
your mileage down, because I think that winning car had like a 120 kilowatt hour battery, which
Hmm.
is huge.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm not familiar enough with the WLTP, but I would assume that there's similarities to the EPA in terms of like there's room, like, 'cause otherwise like doesn't make too much sense in terms of the battery capacity and the actual rated range, like you just said. All right, we got more news from the dealership side of things. So we've been tracking the dealers in the US. So as a potential obstacle, basically for EV adoptions, and they keep proving us right that we were right to be afraid of that. Obviously, like a few months ago, we reported on the 4,000 of them in the U.S. lobbying for lower standards for emission standards, so that forces EV adoptions. And now we get a survey from Auto News that surveyed the 208 dealers and the dealership manager in the U.S. to get an idea of how they see EV adoption, and it basically confirmed that the majority of them are not. They see EVs as a bad thing rather than a good thing. 83% of the dealers surveyed said that they believe the federal government is pushing them into EVs too fast. 55% believe that the EVs aren't generating customer interest or sell at their store, with some or a lack of inventory, which is interesting because if lack of inventory, letter to the White House a few months ago saying that they had too many ZV in inventory, and that was their concern. So, like, slow us down. We cannot sell them. And the others are like, we cannot sell them because we don't have them. Makes no sense. And if you want one that makes no sense, look at this one here. I couldn't stop laughing when I was reading the report from Auto News, and they didn't highlight that. Like, they missed that one completely. They just posted Michael Lucky, general manager of a car dealership in New York. He said that they quoted him saying that electric vehicles are exciting. They're definitely overall good impact for our customers and for the environment. Our customers, keep that in mind. But it's moving too fast. It should be driven by consumer demand, and the consumer demand is not there. Now, guess for whom Mr. Lucky works? He works for Riverhead Mazda of New York. Mazda doesn't even have an electric vehicle for sale. So I'm not surprised that he doesn't believe there's consumer demand for it, because there's probably no one showing up at his dealership asking for electric vehicles because they wouldn't find any. Uh, all electric vehicles, they do have now the X30, the X90, or something 90, that the PHEV thing, but it's not an all electric vehicle. The 30 is gone in the US. A weird one. The only 35% of dealers believe that the new point of sales tax credit for electric vehicle was going to help their business. Um, Now, to be fair, most of them said that it would be how I cannot reconcile that. Like, how's that work? How could it be negative? Uh, I may be unsure, okay, but no impact. Also, no impact. No, it's gonna help you sell EVs. There's no doubt about it. Um, so only 35. So that measure probably told me more. That particular answer to the survey told me more about the dealership than all the others. 35% of dealership is probably the ones that are good with EVs. 35% have a good idea about EVs. The rest is just clueless.
Sounds right.
Because I always like to say, like, when we trash the dealers, it's not all the dealers that are bad. There's plenty of good dealers, and it sounds like about 35% of them, which is a lot, really. There's like, I think there's 18,000 dealers in the US. All right, GM, GM, known to be all in on electric vehicles, goes back to plug-in hybrid in the US. So we haven't seen a GM plug-in hybrid in the US since the Volt was discontinued in 2019. Was a great car, very fun car.
Yep.
Helped transition GM into electric vehicles with the Bolt TV after that, and now the Ultium platform. But now the Ultium platform is not where it needs to be in terms of volume and all that. It's just not quite there yet. So GM, instead of making things work with BEVs, they decided to go back to PHEVs. So that's something that Mary Barra said when announcing the um, earnings this week. She said, our forward plans include bringing our plug-in hybrid technology to select vehicles, without mentioning them, in North America. Let me be clear. Like she said, like, this is not an actual like setback on their plans, which is obviously nonsense. And they said that it's going to be easy to do because they have PHEVs in other markets, which is true specifically in China. They do still sell PHEVs. So I'm assuming a lot of Buicks that they sell in China have PHEVs. So I would assume that they're going to use the same platform there and bring that to the US. But obviously, there's a step back. We know that GM kind of they missed the mark on their EV plans, and they are doing a little bit better in the last few months. On the but not overall, obviously, since the Bolt is going to be dead for a year or two as they transition to the Ultium Bolt. But on the pure Ultium side, they're starting to do a little bit better, just nowhere near the level they need to be. Especially they need the Equinox EV on a high volume because that's probably going to be their biggest seller. And everything else, the Silverado also needs to be ramped up. It's now still a little bit not much volume. So all of that needs to happen. Now the real question, like you can believe Mary Barra and say that it won't change anything, and they're still going all in on that. But I would assume that it's not a great look for those plans if they decide to bring the PHEVs in order to meet the standards in the US.
No, and as much as I like the Volt, like I kind of feel like that type of vehicle's time is kind of winding down. Like
Hmm.
made sense at the time, makes sense even right now, but like to announce that you're going to start doing that for
Yeah.
cars coming out, in years, that's that's a bad look. And like you can't really say anything good about Altium at this point. Like it's an unmitigated failure. Like they're late, their software is not great, like they're making bad plans. One thing I am impressed about is like Mary Barra has somehow kept her job. Like all these things, like
Jesus.
like there's all these like really like obvious bad missteps. I mean, they're profitable, so I guess that's keeps the
Hmm.
shareholders happy. But
Yeah,
like
it's their
my
parts business that's profitable. Like selling parts on their shitty
yeah,
other cars. That's
like man, like come on, like this just the strategy is just awful, and like the companies they choose to invest in are awful. Like
Cruise
and
was not a great success so
Nikola,
far.
like come on, guys, like just so bad, and like the lack of due diligence and the lack of like you know uh not hindsight but foresight. Like
Hmm.
they know kind of where the stuff is going. Like why not put more effort in fixing Altium? And like is it just like broken? Are you going to bring out a new technology? I don't know. It's so frustrating because GM engineers actually build good vehicles. Like the Bolt was a great vehicle.
Hmm.
The Volt was a great vehicle. And for intents and purposes, like the new EVs that are coming out seem to be pretty good. Their software decisions may not be, but like it's frustrating because it feels like the management team is really holding GM back.
Yeah.
So,
All
all
right,
right.
let's jump into the comments.
All right. Let Elon get paid. FFS.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's been one of the recurring comments that I don't like. Is like, let's just give him his money. His money is due. It's like no one. I don't. I have. There's some people for sure, but mostly of the crazies that are like you shouldn't get any money at all. I think most people agree that you should be compensated for his work between 2018 and 2021. That's not the point.
yeah, and he did get a lot of money.
Yeah,
Just in his 20% share of the company went way up. So it's not like
that's
he's
fair too.
going to be
Yeah.
in the poorhouse. All right. Holding on for my long term for my grandchildren, 245 shares. Elon has cost me every cent of my potential profit to this point. There's that argument. Uh, Not sure if that's 100% true, but Jonathan Root says Elon already got paid his stock options, went up by over $150 billion, not including the comp package. That's true. There's a lot of money he already made outside of the comp package. So something to consider. I think we take a chance on the new package because this time we have the past success as a foundational example. Set more performance triggers if they are met than 2000 stock, like ARC predicts. Okay, we have an ARC.
Jeez. Okay, that's just if it's
You
someone like
lost
we.
me.
Yeah, as soon as you're like, all right, let's just use the ARC model, I'm like, you lost me right there.
All right. Can Tesla, the company, be saved from the cult of Elon Musk? Can the Republican Party be saved from Trump? Rhetorical. The gross childish behavior of Elon Musk isn't funny, Fred.
It kind of is sometimes. I
It's definitely
agree,
amusing.
disagree on that.
For,
There's, hey, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna cry about this? Like we
yeah,
need to
come
have
on.
some fun. What are you talking about? It's not like I'm
Uh,
not criticizing him, and I'm just laughing in the corner. I'm criticizing it and laughing at the same time.
all right. We need to distance ourselves from the cult of Tesla for its own credibility.
Oh, David, I think you have not been following us closely at all. If
Yeah.
as the cult of Tesla, if we are in the cult and believe in it, you'll learn that we've been what's the word when you the
Excommunicated.
excommunicated from the cult a long time ago.
Yeah. All right. The wheel covers must not have been on in Baja. Yeah, that's probably
Yeah,
true.
I don't think you use wheel covers for off roading. Yeah.
All right. Eric Hahn asks, any news on the EX30 software issues? That's Volvo. I did hear something about it, but I don't know that it's being resolved. Obviously, it's a new vehicle program for Volvo, and they're trying to get that stuff out the door. The Canadian exchange rate is
Yeah,
74.3 cents. That's
yeah,
amazing.
that was pretty close.
All right, question. 80% plus shareholder vote. Musk delivers promise 10x value. Is it reasonable for the vote to be put again because some SHs didn't do similar
Shareholders.
shareholders? I thought it was going to be another thing. Due diligence to what Fred did. Uh,
I don't know what you mean by to what Fred did, but yeah, I mean that's the point. Like, yes, shareholders should do their due diligence, but that's not what really the judge needed to look at. The judge needed to look at as Tesla and the board presented the information to the shareholder in the appropriate way, and they did not. Like claiming that the package was put together by independent board members and Elon's involvement in Elon and his representative, like his lawyer, being involvement in the making of the package was not put together. Again, Gart, if like I understand where you're coming from and everything, if it's something that you really care about, I would suggest taking the time and reading the judge decision, and because the judge decision include a very detailed chronological look at how the package came together. You can even skip the decision if you want. Skip the first part of the decision where the judge goes into all the legalese and why she has to go this way and all that. Because I know a lot of people are freaking out. They say she's like jealous of his wealth or whatever. Like this is nonsense. You can go into all the chronological part of it and get an actual idea of what happened, and then compare that to the proxy statement. And you can read my article on this because I do put the proxy statement and the decision together, and you have to compare how this happened, and then the board's like, shareholders, this is what happened, and it's not the same. So that's what you needed to look at.
all right. Will the U.S. ever get those cool Model Y colors from Giga Berlin? Texas has a new paint shop. Shouldn't really be a problem. I think
Yeah,
the red's coming, right?
yeah,
The
the
red's
red
here.
and the silver. I don't
Silver.
know. Yeah, they call it silver. Quicksilver. Maybe it's not Quicksilver that happened, but the red is definitely available now.
Yeah, and I mean, sadly, I think Tesla's. If you want some exotic colors, they're kind of pointing you to the wrap section.
Yeah, the wrap section.
All right, question: what do you think is the root problem with Ultium production delay, and is there an engineering problem that needs addressing? Don't know.
Yeah, probably a mixture of everything, really. It's new. It's a new business for them. Like, not exactly new, like the Bolt, but the Bolt was kind of I think
LG.
the Bolt was like run as like very like specific program, but with the people around it and everything. And then I don't know if everyone is still on board. Probably not. I'm sure there's always some turnover and everything. But then after the Bolt, GM kind of went a lot wider with the Ultium, and and it didn't go smoothly, basically. So I think it's as simple as that, and a lot of problems can happen through that.
Yep. All right. So then they better have better batteries than the current ones. Current meaning the ones used in 2019.
I
I
think
mean,
it means the Bolt
yeah,
probably here.
the Bolt battery wasn't bad. I mean, it's 66 kilowatt hours. Does well in the winter.
Yeah, but
No,
the
no
Ultium
complaints.
is different and also
Yeah,
bigger. Everything is bigger with Ultium.
that's true.
Uh,
Also, they don't charge very fast. Oh, the Volt, he's saying.
Okay, it means the Volt. Oh yeah, yeah, maybe. That's
Yep.
fair. All right, that was it for today's episode of the Electrek Podcast. I appreciate every single one of you that listen. If you did enjoy the show, you can give us a like, a thumbs up, subscribe, notification button, whatever it is on your app you're watching, because we are live everywhere every Friday at 4 p.m. if you want to look us up. Because when we're live, you can ask questions like everybody that just did just now. And if you're listening on your podcast app, you can give us a 5-star review. Only if you enjoy the show, obviously, but it's free to do. Takes a second and helps the show a ton to get it to more uh, vehicle automotive fan that can learn about electric vehicles. So thanks a lot, everyone. We're going to see you same place next time.